just thought I'd take a short break just to let you know about becoming a Breakout Bestie. So we've launched a brand new subscription service for the small businesses that need us in your pocket. So why do you need to become a Breakout Bestie? Well, it's just a monthly subscription that gives you access to us when you need us. There's a closed group where you can ask us any question you need. There's also an anonymous posting on, so if you've got clients in the same group, you can ask us anything and we'll get back to you. Sometimes that'll be a quick answer, other times it might be that we need a bit more of an in-depth chat. There'll also be posts and information on the latest trends, the latest strategies for social media, upcoming things from HMRC that you may have missed, just anything you need to make your life easier to run your business. You'll also have access to our client base and money off discounts and vouchers for various services we've got coming out. This is brand new, it's only just been launched, so have a look, go on our website under Besties and sign up soon.
Just seeing how other people lived in various parts of the world, and the fact that there were times when I couldn't buy food with money. People wanted to trade and I didn't have what they wanted, so I didn't get any food.
Hi and welcome to Business Rainbows and Unicorns, where there's no such thing as failure if you don't try. This podcast is specifically for business owners or wannabe business owners. Say you've got a side hustle, or you've got a passion for something and you think it'd be absolutely amazing, or you see people that do amazing things with their passions and what they enjoy doing. Well, you can do that. So please subscribe, and we hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Hi and welcome to this week's episode, which is all about Greg from Sunshine and Green. Anyone who knows Greg and I, you will know individually we both love a chat. So together we chatted for quite a while. So we have split this episode into part 1 and part 2. So here's part 1. Have a listen and let us know what you think. Hi and welcome to Breakout Business Rainbows and Unicorns, where there's no such thing as failure as you don't try. Now this week we have on the podcast Bonnie, the cat, well timed, and Greg from Sunshine and Green. Hi, Greg.
Hello, you all right?
So I've been a customer of Greg's for ages now. So if you haven't been, please go to Sunshine and Green website and become a customer. But also Greg and I have worked together, and yeah, we've done a lot of work. So it's it'll be really interesting to listen to Greg, because he's really, really good and passionate about what he does. So Greg, what's your business? What do you do?
Grow lettuces.
Brilliant. Why did you tell us about Sunshine and Green?
Sunshine and Green is a small organic fruit and veg farm in Cavendish, overlooking the Stour. It is a small example of an agroforestry farm. We can go into that a bit more later.
Yep.
And the fruit and veg goes for sale in local farmers markets and via our box scheme, which is delivered to you every week.
So tell us, and I do know the story, we've spoke about this before, but tell us the full story about why you started your own business, because it was quite an adventure. Should we use the word adventure?
I mean, when you say like why I started that, I mean, no one knows why they do anything, right?
Well, true.
That's how I ask that question to people quite a lot. At the time. It shocks people. So why do you do what you do? I don't know. It's a weird question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why?
To feed people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit
Not
grandiose,
me,
isn't it? No, I mean, there's loads of reasons, really. There's starting all those little seeds were sown a long time ago while sailing. Just seeing how other people lived in various parts of the world, and the fact that there were times when I couldn't buy food with money. People wanted to trade, and I didn't have what they wanted, so I didn't get any food. I sort of realised, it just like sat in my head like, that's quite a vulnerable position to be in, isn't it? Because I don't control money.
No.
But I could control food. Like that man in his canoe had no money, but loads of food. And you think, well, that's interesting. Plus, I mean, also, I think farming for many of us probably skipped a generation or two. I think if you went back far enough, everyone, obviously, was a farmer. In my family, my granddad, he grew up on a farm. He was actually a policeman, but he had a small holding, basically another job where he grew his garden, old-fashioned style. Everything was edible.
Yeah.
He had a suckler herd and bred horses and things.
Mm.
On the other side, my other granddad, chicken farmer.
Yeah.
My parents, not a clue. Didn't do any farming, nothing to do with it at all. So I think probably quite common that most of us are in that position.
Oh, yeah. I've never thought of it like that because my granddad had a small holding. We now call it home base. So he had out there, so obviously where you think home base sits, and there is still, one field right behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was his so the animals
Oh, wow.
were out the back.
Yeah.
And then the front, it was a bungalow. And then the front garden was set in two. So one side was Nan's garden, which was full of the most beautiful flowers in the world. And the other side was fruit and veg.
And now it's home base.
Yeah, now it's home base.
That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Weird, yeah, completely. There was two bungalows and then the nightclub, which everyone knows, Jade's nightclub. But yeah, that was his. And we had horse, chickens, goats.
There you go.
Yeah.
You see, it's right there. It's in the family.
Whereas in the middle, the stepmom, no, she grew beautiful flowers, so she had the flower side. But yeah, it didn't grow any fruit or veg. So yeah, never thought about it that way.
And no one grows food anymore. Like I don't know what the percentage of people who grow food is. Farming in this country is dying out as a trade. I think in the US it's about 3% of the population are farmers. As a lot of people to feed, it was very few. And I don't know what the numbers are like here, but so it's basically it's kind of something I sort of watched peripherally from grandparents anyway. Could see it and enjoyed it, but it wasn't even thought of as a career because parents didn't do it, and you tend to sort of follow parents, don't you? A little bit. Not that anything I've done is remotely related to any of my parents, but the seeds were there, and so I started years later. I started to grow just stuff on my windowsill in Mallorca. I look back at it now, and it's a joke. Really, it was rubbish, all of it, but I really like plants, and yeah, wanted to come back and live in England. So that's what I did. I came back, and it took a long time because getting into farming as a career is also really difficult. Whatever route you take in, finding work is hard. Finding work that you enjoy is harder. Finding education for it is really almost impossible, depending on what you want to do. And so my options, I don't learn well in a formal education environment like school. So I was looking specifically for apprenticeship style work. And most of it was on really big fruit farms where it would be, right, we're going to pick fruit for 3 months and that's it. That's all you do. And I didn't really see much learning opportunity there. And also, the workforce on those types of farms is not English.
No.
And I think that's a barrier because it was a little bit intimidating because I would have been working in an environment where no one spoke English.
Yeah.
And
in England.
Not against, I mean, those people do a great job and they work very hard and good on them because no English people want to do it. But as a newcomer to an industry, imagine being 18 and having to work 12-hour days with people that speak Romanian.
Yeah.
You're like, well, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And
also quite lonely.
Yeah, well, exactly. So that put me off a bit. And I managed to find a spot on a dairy farm, which was not what I wanted, but it was interesting. Learn a lot there. It was a mixed farm, lots of animals. It's a small farm. Learned a lot there. Learned that I never really want to milk cows, although weirdly that might happen again in the future. And then eventually ended up on a fruit and veg farm. 3-year apprenticeship with the Soil Association on a small 30-acre farm in Sussex. And that's where it sort of clicked. That homed in. That was like, perfect. I like this. This is good.
So you did enjoy it, found the work and got the education?
Sort of, yeah. So the education side of it, the apprenticeship with the Soil Association was non-accredited. it was pretty rubbish, if I'm honest. Doesn't exist anymore. They couldn't. So the main learning was obviously led by my mentor, but there was no syllabus for him to follow as such. So I was lucky. I had a good mentor who taught as much as he could, and was really good at it. But other people on that course were struggling because they were just seen as cheap labour, basically. And perhaps their farm was a bit small and they didn't quite get the work and responsibility they needed.
Yeah.
Secondly, the lectures as such, it wasn't like day release, how you think of a modern apprenticeship. There were fewer than 10 lectures a year at various farms, mostly in Wales and the West Country, which is where most of the small organic farms are.
Yeah.
They ignored large farms, which I think is an important aspect of it. I think it's not what I do, but I think going and seeing some of these massive growers like G's Fresh in the Fens, which I think is 20,000 acres or something, like to go and see that would have also been important, because those guys, they do offer a lot of training actually. Companies like that, they have the resources to be able to attract good people and support them.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was a bit of a letdown. But then I also, at the same time as doing that, I got into Hadlow College night school and did horticulture there, just RHS horticulture, just to back things up a bit, and get a bit more theory. Again, immediately I was just a school kid sitting there bored.
I was going to say, how did you find that?
It wasn't easy. I mean, it was 1 or 2 nights a week, but bearing in mind, I was paying my rent by milking a goat before work, so I was up at 4, then go to work on a farm all day, and then drive 45 minutes into Tunbridge Wells, Hadlow, which was the other side of Tunbridge Wells, and go to college. It was like, it's a bit much. But did it anyway, and it was worth doing. And then for some silly reason, it was like, I'll do this myself. Let's go and start a farm from scratch. That'll be easy, won't it? That's fine. You just just do it, don't you?
Yeah, just crack on.
Yeah, and even the trouble was, my boss, my mentor at the time, he really wanted consistent labour, but it's very hard it's a 30-acre farm, but it's very hard to offer people areas of growth and responsibility on that scale, because the work was such that you couldn't necessarily say, right, you're in charge of the polytons, for example, because there's overlap. So it's like, well, actually today we all need to pick potatoes. And you'd be like, well, I'm doing this. So it wasn't quite big enough for a manager as such. And I got bored. I stayed I didn't have to stay 3 years. I stayed another year and I was bored there. It's the same work that I do now, day to day, but I was bored because I didn't have the risk. I didn't have the stress.
No.
I didn't care. It's like, I cared, if a crop failed, it's like, that's bad. But it wasn't my life on the line. It wasn't my income. And I
it's
think
a very different mindset when it's that responsibility, isn't it, of that's your income.
Yeah, it is. And I think I guess that's why a lot of people start their own businesses and why a lot of people don't, because actually I've had periods where I've been employed and it is really good, isn't it? You get weekends, you get salary, you get holidays, you get paid all right.
You switch off and go home, don't have to think about it.
Yeah, it's fine. But it's really quite boring, isn't it? Because then there's this little seed in my head, and I guess this is why it's happened. The way it's happened is that what else would I do? What is there?
Well,
is this it?
No.
This is your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And again, don't put that down. Like, it's a good way of living. You can do a lot, and you can have a really, really good life, and probably, arguably, do more.
Well, but then I always think it's a bit like the education, because I'm the same as you. I've done certificates, diplomas, whatever they were called, sat in a classroom and learning. So they're telling me out of a book how to negotiate. Whereas if you give me a person to negotiate with, I find that quite interesting. You learn from it. I don't book learn. And I think it's the same for employment. Used to work with people in corporate world. They thrive in the 9 to 5. They absolutely love it. And that's their thing. Whereas the same as you, I'd go home, I wouldn't switch off, but at the same time I would switch off and be like, oh is this it? Is that, this is my routine? Yeah.
Where'd you go from here?
Yeah.
One thing I learned from working on yachts, actually, with a lot of these very wealthy people. I mean, you're talking the 1%, if you like, people whose holiday toy is 25 million quid just to buy it.
Yeah.
And these guys,
We'll be there one day.
yeah, but I mean, it's the same stuff, really, because then it's like, what I realised is one guy used to come down and complain about his life and how hard it was. And I realised it's like, actually, everyone, if you don't have problems, you'll look for them.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what they do. So it's like, well, okay, if you have the right amount of challenges in front of you, you'll be okay.
Mm.
You know, like when you don't. So, for example, when I've had 9-to-5 jobs, I found myself getting depressed because and I always thought it was, it's me, you know, I'm not doing what I should be doing. But it's like, there's no problems.
No. Yeah.
There's nothing to overcome. So my brain eats itself.
Yeah.
And you can't live like that. Well, I can't. I mean, it's fine.
But I think as well, that's kind of where you get and the last 3 years have shown that as well, where you do get people, as we were saying before we came on here, you end up scrolling and you're looking at what everyone else does.
Yeah.
And then you get, whether it's envy, jealousy, FOMO, whatever it might be, that's your problem, because you're like, well, do I want that? Do you want 9 times out of 10? Probably not. But it's that, well, I'm not fulfilling myself here, so I need to find what I want through here.
Well, exactly. And the thing with the comparison is it's all well and good. Like if I'm standing, for example, if there was another farm down the road doing exactly what I'm doing, we would naturally compare ourselves to each other. But we have the means to compete.
Yeah.
So you're okay, their tomatoes are better than mine. What can I do to make them better? And we can actually like push each other.
Yeah.
But when you're, like say, if you're feeling jealous of someone on Instagram, there's no way you can compete.
No.
So you can't meet that challenge. And I think a lot of the emotions, I don't think there's bad emotions. Jealousy is good. It's like, well, that's something I want, so I better work harder and try and get it.
Yeah.
But when you've got weird, unrealistic jealousy, like looking at someone sitting on a super yacht, you go, well, I'm jealous of that. You're never going to get it.
No.
I mean, you might, but it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
But being jealous of someone because they've got better trainers than you can meet that demand. You just have to go and work harder.
Yeah.
So that's that. I think social media does wreck people in that sense, kind of. But again, you know, maybe you got a shot. Just get to work. Try.
Yeah. Find something you're good at and you're passionate about, and then you'll put the time in. Yeah,
that's it. And you know, it is the outlet, and you have to be prepared to be really, really miserable for a long time. No, I mean, like this year is the first time. Like, so I started this farm, a different farm, this business at a different farm. Officially, Sunshine and Green was registered in 2017. I started trading summer of 2018.
So we're on year 5.
Year 5, yeah, and I'm just about to take my first salary. Hopefully by the end of the month, depending on when HMRC get the registration stuff done for, you know, PAYE, then I'll give myself 5 years. 5 years unpaid.
Yeah.
And it's the last 3 years of that have changed my perspective on again, I don't talk about millionaires all day, but like the people that as a teenager you give a lot of flack to. It's unfair, look at them in there. Like all this, like all of those guys have done this.
Yeah.
Every single person, like pretty much, apart from maybe Prince Andrew, and those guys, all of them, self-made, have suffered for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Working, being stressed, not really being paid, being the last person to be paid.
Yeah.
And now you sit there and go, well, it's not fair they're on a yacht. It's like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is actually, because that's their payday. They took the risk. They took all of it. And you've got your 9 to 5.
And ultimately, that's what you don't see on social media. You're not going to put up. And I think that's why I've got your account. I think a couple of friends, I've got them sucked into your stories as well. Because actually it's like, yeah, it's pissing down with rain. It's still raining. Or this has happened. Or look at this. I've got to do this today. It's not all they're like, oh my God, look at this amazing tomato today. Oh my God, look at this. It's brilliant. And it's like, it's the truth and the
stories,
the information of what's going on, but the truth and the honesty day to day of what actually happens, because it's not the fact that it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's
it never will be.
There's graft behind it.
And that's like, I like a story. If there's someone that's succeeding in what they do, but there's no story behind it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Like, good for you, well done.
Yeah.
But it is the stories. And again, like the product I'm selling, vegetables, it's not unique.
No.
You can get it elsewhere. You can't necessarily get it grown locally elsewhere. So maybe there are some unique aspects to it. But you can still go and buy broccoli and cabbages somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the story behind it, how it's grown, why it's being grown that way, who it's being grown by, the story of the farm being built, those things really count. And I think that's, all of life is about stories, really, and what you tell yourself every day, the narrative you run about who you are.
Yeah.
That's another story. And, you tell yourself you're not ever going to be that, and you won't be, you just carry on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's maybe getting a bit grandiose and out of the way, but the point is, like,
same time, it's that's ultimately sums up good social media as well. What's content? And it's when we did the episode on the news about why the pubs are closing, because people want experiences and they want stories. And it's the same with social media. And we've had the conversation. There's no point me going, I could do your social media for you, because I couldn't. I wouldn't get your tone of voice. I wouldn't get your story across. Ultimately, you'd be paying to send me stuff that I'd be posting for you anyway, so it's an excess cost, and that's what we're all about. But people buy from people, and they'll buy your story and the reasons why. So if you give them the reason why, so yes, you could go to Tesco's and get a cauliflower. However, which are your brand pillars? What's your story? Why do you want? What are you passionate about in life? What are your personal values? Well, my personal values is either to buy organic or buy local. Well, that's then your why. And that's explained. So you're marketing without thinking, I'm going to do marketing today. You're not. You're just talking about what you do.
Exactly, yeah. And that's a big thing. And I think at this moment in time, there's a lot of, like, the way things are being grown at the farm, not just the sort of organic side of it, but the environmental side of it. It's very much, even the local food side of it. There's a lot of chat around that at the moment. I've managed to sort of put myself in a fairly unbiased position as much as I can, because recently, 2 years ago, everything was local food. That's the way forward. That's how you do it. That's the best thing ever. And now I'm starting to realise that it's a big part of it, but actually a global food system's really, really good as well. It's, if you look at the world right now, I think it was Riverford, the big national box scheme, they put up a post last week saying that the food system is broken and in need of repair. And that implies that it was better before and it worked perfectly. Like, when your car is broken, you bought it and it worked fine, and then it broke and you have to repair it.
Yeah.
Food system's never been better than it is right now. Now, the last couple of years, we've seen food prices go up.
Yeah.
Granted, and some people have struggled with that. Still loads of food.
Yeah.
Food system's not broken. It's just a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. Still available.
Farmers are having same old troubles they have been for years and years, getting a fair price for their produce, and input prices are obviously very high. So there are loads of problems. But the only places in the entire world where people are starving are places like Haiti, Yemen, and Sudan, where there's extreme political instability, which suggests the politicians are the problem.
Yeah.
Not the food system.
Yeah.
The engineers, the farmers, the scientists, horticulturalists, all of these people, we've nailed it, right? We could, in theory, make everyone on the planet overweight and everything would be fine.
Yeah.
Again, there are still problems, there's environmental problems, but those are sort of opportunities, aren't they? Because, okay, cool, now we can change a system. And that's where the local bit comes in, because you go, okay, well, you can't, but what can we do locally? Because pollution and environmental things are a local issue as much as a global thing, because globally it's all chat on CO2. It's like, can't do much about that, really. But what I can do is take 4 acres and make it as wildlife and food friendly as possible, which is the point. I think the point in what I want to do with this farm as I scale it is to find a system where we can have wildlife and food together. I don't like rewilding, and I don't like industrial farming.
Yeah.
And why can't we compromise? Yeah. Why do you have to sit in these two camps and hate one another?
Yeah.
It doesn't really wash with me. And I think we can do it. That's just what I'm going to try and do. It's a bit of a mission.
It's a hell of a mission.
Well, it is, because it's made harder by the fact that if you start with land, you got such a leg up. And if you don't, I would like to use the farm, set another platform for the farm, or another opportunity for the farm is to use it as a platform to help young people get involved.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, it's like, good luck. In the way things are right now, good luck. If you're 18, you want your own farm. There's a few that are doing it. I mean, there's Colette's farm near here. They started with nothing. They have a good tenancy. They have a good landlord.
Yeah.
There's...
That's the same with like a shop though as well, isn't it? It's not the same but different. But if we've got at Melford, I've got an amazing landlord, got a brilliant tenancy agreement. Brilliant. I'll be there hopefully for as long as I can and as long as I want.
Yeah.
Whereas other places I've been offered in Sudbury, this, that, and there's all these caveats and compromises, and gut feeling is, nah, it's not for us.
No, exactly. And you need that stability. Whatever your business is, you need to not think about that.
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, I can't invest because I might have the taken away. Yeah. And in the farming world, everything is 10 years minimum, like in terms of investment.
Yeah.
I'm going to plant fruit trees. I'm not going to get anything back for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then profit is a few more years. And then to get the full effects of the environmental benefits of those, the trees need to be fully mature, and that might be 15 years.
Yeah.
It will start sooner, but...
Yeah.
So it's, if you're talking about landlords, it's like, well, they don't really care.
No.
My neighbour, he's very loosely kind of just in passing gone, you can have this field if you like, it's a bit small for us. I'm like, that would be great, and it's very useful, it's right next door, but I'd be apprehensive because I know he has other plans for it as well, and you think, I could just take that away, and then it's gone. Do I want to plant fruit? Does he want me to plant trees?
Yeah.
I need hedges around it. Is he going to allow that? Is there going to be any help in putting infrastructure in, because it's his land? So that makes it more difficult. And then if you want to buy land, I mean, if you're lucky, you'll get 10 grand an acre, and you're going to need, I reckon, a minimum of 10 really to get going. So there's 100 grand, and that'll get you a field.
Yeah.
With a gateway, if you're lucky, maybe not. And then you got to put water in, and you got to put power in, and you got to put a barn in, or some sort of building. Then you got to plant your fruit trees, and you got to buy all the tools and the equipment, all the seed, and then you got to survive for a few years whilst everything gets established. And you go, okay, so how many hundreds of thousands is that for a 10-acre farm that maybe will pay you a decent-ish living, but you'll probably do better at Tesco's at the checkout. So is it worth it? Probably not.
No.
But
is it the right thing to do, though?
Exactly. In the grand scheme of the world, I think it is a good thing to do, and it will benefit people and communities, and I think you will get a lot of meaning out of it. If you want to go to your bank and ask for a mortgage and ask which type of business would be better for them, they're going to go and tell you to work at Tesco's.
Yeah.
But then again, if you are a farmer and your dad has a farm, and I don't want to be bitter like that, because I don't think it's being
bitter though. I think it's being realistic of ultimately, and it's the same issue I had when I wanted to open Long Melford. Ideally, I'd have bought a place, but I couldn't buy a place. So it's like, okay, I've got to rent a place. Well, there was a lot I wanted for that. I can get a grant for love nor money. So I ended up with a bounce back loan because of the way my business was structured. But at the same time, it's like, but everything I want to do is to help small businesses in the area. So surely I don't know why you wouldn't, and I've put a post up before on various business groups of, I just want, how do you get that Dragon's Den? How do you get those investors, like, without standing there on Dragon's Den? Where's that? Because the money's out there. Had a couple of people tagged, spoke to this, like new age accountants, sort of external CFOs, and they said, go to the UK business loan. I don't want a loan. I want an investor. Well, you won't get one. But why won't I get one? Because I know, and I've now gone down the road, and I've got a mentor who's working with me because he's good at what I'm not, which is the politics, the bureaucracy and that side of things. For me to go, right, I'm 2.5 years down the line, I'm making a profit. So but other than me going, Greg, I could look, it works because I'm still here 3 years down the line. Well, why can't this? Why wouldn't you give me some money and invest? I'm not very good at the detail and putting that behind. I'm just like, well, just give me some money. I promise you, I'll give you a return on it. Look, I've done it for myself, sort of thing. Yes, still, as you say, I'm the last to be paid. I pay myself absolute minimum because all the other bills go out. But it's just a really weird situation to be in. And the same with, like you say, with the land of if you're a farmer's son and then it is like, oh, well, can you give me that 10 acres and this is my plans for it? Obviously, depending, going down a whole family relationship, why wouldn't they go, well, yeah, go for your life? It's if you've... So, yeah, I don't think it's being bitter or anything like that. It's realistic of
but
that's
it's
your stumbling block,
it's just the way the world
isn't
is. Like, if you want to get in on a farm, and even... So I'm lucky. The farm I have is a county council farm. Not all counties have them, but I think there's 13,500 acres in Suffolk. And even those are undergoing the same process as large farms. So farms have got larger and larger in this country because when one guy retires, generally speaking, his kids have gone, it's easier elsewhere to earn a living, probably is. And the larger farms nearby, they're pretty much cash rich. And if they're not, they've got stacks of land, so the banks will lend the money. So they just suck up that land. And the same thing is starting to happen with council farms. I know one example of it would have been a perfect starter farm, 200 acres, barns, house. And that's, a lot of people see council farms as a starter farm. Because the rents are good. The council, they're supportive. They have a budget to help and they will if they can. Massively underfunded on that side of it, but it's another subject. In this particular case, that 200 acres was split between two other council farmers. The barns will be rented out to another business, which in another way I'm not against. It's like, okay, so there's another business with more rural jobs. I get it. There's some good out of it. But that land now is now part of two larger farms and will never come back to a smaller farm, meaning the barrier to entry for anyone new is now taking on one of those two larger farms, which might be 1,000 acres. And we go back to your startup costs. You want to farm 200 acres, you don't need a particularly large tractor. You can get some second-hand kit. You can probably buy the seed and the inputs for that first year. 1,000 acres, it's just bigger numbers, bigger and bigger numbers. So they're doing the same thing. And I asked one of the farmers, I said, why did they do that? And he said, because 200 acres isn't viable anymore while standing on my 4-acre farm. And he then looked around and went, well, I mean, yeah, obviously you're 4 acres, but, it's like, yeah, you're just not, I don't know, what's not viable?
What stops it?
Yeah, and I think, I don't blame the farmers on this one. I think they're caught on a treadmill that most, especially arable anyway, there's a treadmill of, you're not in control of the price of your produce. Someone else tells you what it's worth, and then someone else tells you what the price of your inputs are. So you're just playing with margins in the middle. How much can I save here? Please let the weather be good so I get a good yield. But then if I get a good yield, they'll probably drop the price on, drop the value of it anyway. So the cycle begins and you're kind of stuck. I know Riverford have a petition out at the moment against the supermarkets because supermarket contracts pretty horrible. They're not good places to be for farmers, and that's making it more difficult as well. So again, they're not in control of the price. And that is where a local food system can step in. So a global food system, if we had a really bad year here and all the harvest failed, fine, because it probably would have been all right in Australia or America. Let's buy some in, not a problem. But then when it's global, those food prices are linked globally. Whereas a farmer here could go, okay, look, let's have a mill and let's make our own flour and let's sell directly to the people here. It would probably cost more, but at the end of the day, that's their security. And that's the angle I'm going at. I'm in control of the price within reason. I'm cheaper than Riverford, just in case you're a Riverford customer. Don't charge delivery either.
Delivery? Weekly or fortnightly?
More local, fewer food miles. But the point there is, it's like, I have that control. If I need to charge more, I can. to an extent. Like it's a real price.
Yeah.
Coupled with the fact I don't get subsidies. There are none available to a
No.
small farm. You need to have lots of land to get a meaningful subsidy, and also to get grants.
Yeah.
Farming grant not available to small farms.
Yeah.
So okay, well, fair play. So millionaire landowner gets grants and subsidies.
But then it's interesting because the timing is we've obviously got the budget out this week. I can't see them helping. My other business partner Phil put a post up last night on LinkedIn about, because he's started business in last year as well as helping me start Breakout. He said they won't help small businesses. However, Shell make billions a month. So then you've got that comparison. On the flip side, it was a year ago, more or less, that a chicken egg farmer went viral talking about the supermarket contracts, supermarket prices.
Yeah, I know that guy.
And when the eggs were scarce in the big four, but you could obviously go up to the egg farmer. Is it EGF at Old Joe's? Loads up there, go and help yourself. And that's where ours come from, because we buy from Byham's Dairy. But at the same time, having with my other hat on, so previously I was a buyer, I would work in the corporate world, and we were bringing in buyers from Tesco's and Sainsbury's. So I was wanting to be taught by those buyers, and this is why I've got such an issue with certain supermarkets, because I found out that some of the stock on those shelves, including the fruit, veg, whatever, they didn't make a margin. So you sell into the supermarkets and you don't make a margin. And I've had this repeated rant for years, and some of my friends are bored with it, because every time they say they're getting deliveries from, well, Tesco mainly, they're my number one hit. I'm like, but they're buying from farmers who are selling into them just to have their stock there. Like, they're just doing the volume. With my other hat on, of seeing the import and container charges go through the roof since the dreaded B word, it is more expensive to import in here, so that's fine. So yes, so you can have a whole rant about there's a food crisis. Yes, price has gone up, but price has gone up because we can't now buy tomatoes from Spain at the same price you can get them down the road. So I suppose my customer, or my passion on that, is that, well, actually, if you're going to say, oh, Tesco's have gone up, well, why don't you now compare individually buying that fruit and veg from yourself? Because actually, when you're saying, oh, well, Tesco's or whoever it might be is really, really cheap, well, actually, if you look at like for like what you're buying, and when I say like for like, the quality of it, yes, you're paying for an exact tomato with any issues, scrapes or anything on it. However, but what the quality of taste is like in comparison. But on the flip side, also, what's your wastage? Because you can get a massive tub of tomatoes that are perfect from Tesco's and taste like water. But how much of that are you throwing away? And that was always my argument as a buyer, was on the wastage and volume side of things, because you're thinking you're buying it cheaper, but it's not cheaper if you've spent £1 and 50p of that is going in the bin. So from the flip side of being a buyer on that side of things, I find it really, really interesting when people talk about their price of food, where it's come from, the quality of it.
It's a big one, that, because I had this conversation the other day with someone, and she's a shepherdess, and she's like, well, the trouble is not everyone can afford to buy food from us. And it's like, well,
they can.
They can. And also the other side of it is, in the long run, they're going to have to, because this isn't, when you think of sustainability, people at the moment, that word means it's like environmental sort of thoughts, right? You start thinking about trees and like it's sustainable.
Yeah.
But sustainable has to be about money as well, unfortunately. And, when you've got farmers that are just scraping by selling to these big guys that, I mean, I don't know, are they sold as lost leaders in the supermarkets? When I see Sprouts at Christmas for 19p for half a kilo, it's like, no one's making money on that.
No. That's
just waste. And like you say, most of it's going to get thrown away.
Yeah.
And so you start thinking about it like that, and you go, well, we're going to subsidies a bit as well. Talk about that in the sustainable side of it, because the subsidy side of it, not just in farming, but when you think about tax credits for low-income workers. Low-income workers work at supermarkets. That's a minimum wage job for the most part. So there's a lot of tax credits there. And so that's a subsidised wage. It's not a real wage. Then you've got the farm subsidies as well. So that artificially makes food cheap.
Yeah.
The supermarkets don't have to pay properly because the taxpayer will stump it up. And then you've got farmers getting subsidies because some of them just because they have land, but because supermarkets aren't paying properly, or the buyers of whatever the produce is, whether it's the grain buyers that sit in the city, these traders giving a rubbish price.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, so the farmer can't make money, or the person that's selling him his fertilizer. Okay, so that we need to subsidize it, otherwise the business goes bust. It's like, okay, so if you take away subsidies, the whole thing collapses and everyone starves. It's not sustainable.
No.
You can't go on. And, at the moment you've got, well, let's cut. It's a bit of a sore topic at the moment. I've just had a big dentist bill, but the dentistry's been secretly privatised.
Yeah.
And you're okay, so if we haven't got money for dentistry, why are we subsidising all this other stuff? It's smoke and mirrors. It's just a game. And I resent that. I'm sort of proud of it as well because I don't get those subsidies. So if you do buy from me, it's a fair price. That's what it costs.
Yeah.
That's what it costs for production. I buy in from other local farms as well. They tell me how much the stuff is, and that's fair price. And I build that into the price. So everyone's getting a fair price. There's no secrets. There's no subsidised nonsense. It's just, this is the value of your food. And if you want to put that into context of history, in the 1950s, people in this country spent a third of their income on food.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, because I'm sure I saw that either you'd posted it or someone had posted it, of actually, if you looked at your entire expenses of your household, I'm sure it was...
It's like 2014 was the lowest it's ever been in history. Mm. It was like less than 10% of your income. Now it's just over 10%. But... and you hear a lot of people like, oh, the boomers had it best. It's like, not really. They were paying a third of all of their money went on food.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Hence having gardens full of vegetables and maybe a suckler pig and chickens, right?
Yeah.
You had to.
But it was decent food. See, that's always my argument.
True.
Is if we go, let's not, but we could go down the whole NHS, health route, health problems, etc., etc. But now people aren't buying decent food, and that's always my argument, is that I've got an iPhone. I don't know what iPhone it is. It's a 12 or something. So I'm walking around with like 600 quid in my pocket.
Sure.
So if I then turn around and go, I can't afford, I've got to go to supermarket for my fruit and veg, or I have to pay. Well, no, actually, when I say I can't afford it, it's a matter of my priority, because I'm walking around with 600 quid in my pocket.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, that's, God, what do I spend on? Probably 100 quid a week on food. So actually, that's 6 weeks food to me, which the food keeps me alive. The iPhone
well, this is
a bit of a bonus, and I think that's always my argument to people. It's just
it is. We've got more stuff.
You can't afford food, really.
But you can't be without, like, I can't do any of what I do without a phone, without internet, without a laptop or a computer, and most people can't now. Like, you try and apply for a job without internet access.
Oh, yeah.
And my domestic bills, I think, call it communications if you like, but that's one of the biggest parts of it.
Yeah.
I live pretty cheaply. I'll sit in a room with one light bulb. I'm like a monk. But, like my phone bill, my Wi-Fi bill, my BT connection is more than my electricity bill.
Mm.
And you go, well, hang on. Like, in theory, I don't need those things.
Yeah.
But in practice, the modern world, you do. And so we've got more stuff. But also, it does make life better if used right.
Yeah.
You can talk to people whenever you want and do stuff. Like, I think a lot of stuff has to be looked at through the context of history. It's something I've really focused on the last few years, particularly with food. You go back far enough, all you did was focus on food.
Yeah.
You'd be men running around with pointy sticks. Talking about it yesterday, like, you'd have to run after a mammoth. Someone had that idea once. I'm really hungry. What are we going to eat? Like, we'll eat that. What? That over there? What are you looking at? There's nothing there. Don't you mean that mammoth? Yeah, we'll eat that. That massive hairy elephant. Yeah, and look, Mike's got this bit of like look at what he's done with his stick. He
Yeah.
made it pointy.
Got a point at the end.
So we'll just run at it and we'll throw these sticks at it and then we'll eat it.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what do you want for dinner? Well, do you want to get takeaway?
Mm.
20 minutes is a bit long, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Should we just have a sandwich?
Yeah.
Like, it's nonsense.
It is mental.
Utter nonsense. And 200 years ago, even in this, I mean, I don't know if you've seen photographs from like the turn of the 20th century, and no one had any teeth.
Mm.
That's not just dentistry, that's diet.
Yeah.
Because people are eating pretty much just starch.
Yeah.
That's the bulk of your diet. So vegetables and bread and butter, which, it's not sugar, but it's starch, right? It's just rotting your teeth out. You also haven't got all the other nutrients you're getting. So nowadays we have access to all of this, all of the time, whenever you want it. If you want to, you can eat really well.
Yeah.
So what's broken about the food system in that sense? It's like, sure, there's a load of stuff we need to fix, and I think that'll happen. I mean, I go back to getting into farming because I think that's a bit more in the wheelhouse, really, something I've experienced. And I would really like to be able to use this farm. It's a long way from it because you've got something you'll probably experience as well. You have to be of a certain size before anyone actually listens or will take notice. And I'll say this like quite sort of just honestly, really, but it all comes down to the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
If I want, my neighbour's a conventional farmer. He's really good at what he does. Could be better environmentally.
Yeah.
But there's no point in saying, "Oi, you're killing all the birds. You're doing this. We don't want glyphosate." If I go, "Look, mate, I'm making some money over here. Do you want in?"
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I've got like organic matter levels in the soil are up, insect counts up, bird counts up, all of these things. Mate, look, we're balling over here. Look, I've got this fancy tractor. I did it selling organic veg. They might listen.
Yeah.
Be like, "Oh yeah, well yeah, we'll turn over 100 acres to that.
Yeah.
Agroforestry. Oh yeah, we'll give that a go. There's no subsidies though. It's just making money. Okay, yeah. Well, if it makes money, they'll do it.
Yeah.
It's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
Don't care how hippie you are. If it doesn't pay, it's not going to work.
But if it makes money, it's got to make money now.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Because it's not 5-10 years. It's like, oh, we've got cash now.
Yeah. Okay. So there's the way I see it is I'm under-resourced. I don't have the resources to get the business from where it was to where I want it to be, where it's making money very quickly. But if you're a resource-rich farmer, like a lot of these guys are, then making those changes is relatively easy.
Okay.
Plus, you get grants for changing systems.
Yeah.
Plus, you'll get subsidies for doing that. So it's like, okay, so you just need the incentive to do it. And the incentive comes down to making more money.
Yeah.
Because you're already making loads.
Yeah.
And if you've got the resources to make the changes, like it exists, there's so much around. It's just the will to do it.
Yeah.
And it is a risk. And I know I have spoken to a farmer about this, an old family friend, and he was scoffing at organic, and now he's using organic cover crops. So, and that's in a few years.
Yeah.
But he said to me, he goes, "Well, we don't do things first. We let other people try it first. The best new machinery comes out, we let them go first.
Risk averse.
Very conservative values.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, good job you weren't around when the monkeys came out of the trees, because we'd still be up there if you were in charge, because let them get down first." So, but the point is, like, you just have to lead that one. You're okay, so let's use what can we do with 4 acres?
Yeah.
Pay myself a salary. That's good. Can pay salaries of a couple of other people. I can employ probably pretty close to employing more people than my neighbour who farms thousands of acres. And I can employ the same amount of people. Okay, so what are we saying?
Yeah.
I mean, let's make it work.
Yeah, exactly.
So
just explain agroforestry, because
agroforestry is like, it's too good to be true. So the whole premise is, if you think about Suffolk, if you left the fields alone, they would be woodland. right? That's what they would revert to.
Yeah.
Within 100 years, there'd be young woodlands.
Yeah.
So we're sort of fighting it.
And even when I went to Chernobyl a couple of years, it'll be 2 years ago, it's all woodland.
It's a woodland,
now.
Yeah. That's what certain parts of the world want to be certain things, and here it wants to be a woodland. And trees are pretty good habitat. Just on a side note, you think about hedges. Just want to say, because people often say that humans are bad for the world. That's the sort of zeitgeist. That's the sort of thing you hear a lot.
Yeah.
But hedges are a human invention. And now everyone wants to plant hedges because they're good for wildlife.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about this country way back when it was a forest, inside of a forest, there's not a lot of food.
No.
Most of the berries, the blossoming, fruiting type trees are on the field margins, on the woodland margins. And humans came along, cleared the forest and made hedges. It basically made more fruiting plants in the countryside. Now, we ripped them up in the last 70 years and made bigger fields with nothing in them.
Yeah, but still.
But the point is, over a period of time, it actually made the country more hospitable to songbirds and insects than it was prior to that. So we can do good.
Yeah.
Is my point there. So agroforestry is on that tangent. Now, there's lots of ways of looking at it. On my scale, again, they have to produce food.
Yeah.
Because the farm needs an income from them. But I can plant those trees. I've got apples, pears, plums. I've included soft fruits, so raspberries and currants, because they're perennial and you do get a lot of insects in them. Really tasty as well.
Yeah.
So I include those in my model of agroforestry. Now, we get fruit, so that's food. Insects, birds, they get habitat. I think it's 300 odd species of insects will live in an apple tree. And then associated birds that will be eating those.
Oh, wow.
Underneath those trees, you can grow wildflowers and cover crops. Again, more habitat for insects, birds, mammals, things like that.
When you say cover crops, what do you mean by
cover crops? So a cover crop is something that you would use to essentially cover the ground, I guess is a simple way of looking at it. In organic, you might hear the phrase green manure used more often. I use cover crop because it's a very conventional area and people understand that a bit more. But green manure is essentially you grow your fertility.
Right, okay.
So it'd be things like clover, chicory, grass, things with big tap roots, nitrogen fixers. They take nitrogen out of the air, put them in the soil. And the green manure, because it's green and it takes the place of manure.
Yeah.
And they're really good. They change the soil structure. So you can stick those under there. And again, they're like things like clover and chicory. They're all producing flowers that insects and birds absolutely love.
Yeah.
We've got some really a nice flock of goldfinches at the farm that spend a lot of time just flying across the farm, eating seeds from a lot of these flowers. So, you get those benefits from it. It provides additional income for the farm, as well as those habitats. Because you could say, I know some larger farms where they've just planted rows of trees just for habitat, which is great. But the only way that's sustainable is if they get a subsidy for it.
Yeah.
So and they do get that. And granted, it's a good thing. Won't put it down. But I can't do that on a scale. And perhaps as a larger model, that's not necessarily a sustainable one. You could, in theory, and I know someone that did this, they planted a row of oak trees, which was their pension plan. So you put them in early enough, you cut them down, you use it, because they're worth a lot as timber. That's part of your agroforestry. As soon as you cut them down, you plant more for your kids.
Yeah.
It's a long game.
Yeah. It's a bit more than 5 years.
It might even be multiple generations. You might plant them for your grandkids kind of thing. But the point is, there's other ways of looking at it. That same farm, this is, I can't remember the name of the farm now. Anyway, they're in Suffolk. It's another agroforestry farm, much more established. One of his rows of trees were hazel, which 2 rows of hazel, you cut one at a time, so you've always got one, cut in rotation, used as biomass to heat his house.
Oh, wow.
So there's it doesn't just have to be food.
Yeah.
But the point is, it has to have some sort of utility and benefit to the community around it, whether it's just an income for the farm, whether it's heating, whether it's timber for building, or whether it's fruit for people to eat. And agroforestry kind of wins a lot on that front. Secondary effects, these big open fields, they're not that great for the soil, wind, rain, erosion. By having trees, you slow the wind down, you slow the runoff. We've had a lot of floods recently. If you had more trees on the hills higher up, that would slow a lot of that down. They would absorb a lot more water. You would shelter your crops. Again, having trees, you slow the wind down, you create microclimates within those, between the rows of trees. So, the benefits just seem to go on and on. Also, with vegetable production in particular, a lot of the work is very seasonal. And again, having rows of trees that would need maintenance in winter, there's the possibility of having a spread of labour, and therefore having a lot more retention of staff. Having some work, some employment for people to do in the winter when there's less to do on the veg side of it. Whether it's picking fruit in the autumn, pruning it through the first part of the winter. So that's slightly looser, but again, maybe if you have, the larger scale systems with things like trees for timber, cutting those down. It's an extra skilled bit of work. So I think you can bring more people into the fold a bit. So agroforestry seems to tick all the boxes. Plus, it's really nice to be amongst trees.
Too good to be true.
It does seem too good to be true, and there's got to be a fault with it. And you quite often hear, the reason we have such big fields is because the hedges were grubbed out to make them more efficient for growing arable crops. Okay, great, but we're in control of that. You can design your agroforestry system for your machinery. So most common size, and obviously I'm organic, but these guys, when I talk to the conventional guys, okay, so put them 30 metres apart. Your spray boom is 25 metres. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Still got your trees. You can still drive your machinery around it in a very efficient, easy way.
Yeah.
Habitat, food, tick, shelter for your crops, tick's all there. So we can design it. It's malleable. It's not this fixed thing. And I think that's something that is worth sort of bringing into the conversation quite a lot. Plans for the farm going forwards. Like I've always thought of, what is sustainability? And this comes right back to a local level again. If you think of a castle and you're in the castle and you've got all your food, all your water, everything sorted, and some bad guys come, so what?
Yeah.
So you stand outside, we're all right, we've got everything we need in here. So if you think of a farm like that, if I have all my fertility, then market shocks to, like recently with sanctions and various things going on in the world, fertilizer prices up and down, grain prices up and down, who cares? My fertilizer comes from the farm. It's green manures, animals from the farm. It's all here. I don't care. My fertilizer prices barely rose in the last few years because it's local and I don't produce it myself. But longer term, I would like to include animals into the farm. Going back to I might end up milking cows again. But I think they form a really important part of a farm and our food system in terms of nutrition for us, in terms of nutrition for the soil, and again, perhaps more income for the farm, or at least a spread of income. You're going to have you're not going to have as much veg to sell in winter. But if I have a dairy herd, always got milk. If I've got chickens, always got eggs. They slow down a bit in winter, but they're there. And we always have food. That's why these things exist as a foodstuff. Go back 1,000 years. People lived in their house with a dairy animal and some chickens and sheep because that's all there was to eat. Couldn't pop to supermarkets and have broccoli that's been flown in from Morocco. It's not a thing. So what are you going to do? Have some milk.
And I think that's some of the scare stories in the more recent years, isn't it? Of just of the media of, we can't get tomatoes from Spain this year and it's the end of the world. Well, actually, England's all right. We've still been able to grow them. It's not a problem. So yes, you can scare everyone, and it's when you've seen the supermarkets empty, particularly in whenever it was just after COVID. Of we can't import this, we can't import that. Well, actually, it's not a problem because it's grown there.
Yeah, I mean, we could do so much more. And like, again, if I had unlimited resources, I would never run out of salad ever.
No.
52 weeks of the year. If I had there's a glass house near Bury St Edmunds, and it's linked to the biomass boiler up there, the power station, and it's been sitting empty for years. I think it's about 40 acres. It's massive.
Oh wow.
And they didn't use it because it was supposed to be just for tomatoes, and it's supposed to be heated by the power station. Great idea. It was a Dutch company that actually invested in it, and I suspect the government as well. It was just sitting there empty. And then, was it last winter when they had the salad shortages? And BBC Suffolk contacted me, and it was like, well, if I had that 40-acre greenhouse, I'd have loads of salad. Even cold. I don't need it heated.
Yeah.
Just some soil. We'll grow leaves in there. It's fine. We could have spring onions in there all winter. We can have various different types of salad leaves.
Yeah.
We can have all sorts of stuff, spinach the lot,
Yeah.
in 40 acres of glass.
Yeah.
And you've got nothing because you can't heat it.
Yeah.
Summer, stick your tomatoes in there. We don't need to heat it.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, if there is like a power station available and it is reliable, then sure. Then extend your tomato season.
Yeah.
But there comes a point when there's not enough daylight anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well fill it with other stuff that will grow.
Yeah. Make use of what you've got.
Yeah, and I think, it's one of those, one day I will have enough covered, protected cropping
Yeah.
to be able to keep up supply. At the moment, I sort of ration salad a bit. It's like we had salad for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Might not have it again next week, just so we can have it the week after kind of thing. But because I haven't got a lot of space.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
Can be grown.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of will. And I think, I don't like bang on about sort of bottom line and investment, but it's like if you're really, really looking at, go back to the castle thing, it's like if you're really looking at the idea of keeping a country secure, there's always talk of military spending where we need to be safe. It's like, if there was a war like the Second World War, one of the biggest problems was food.
Yeah.
Couldn't produce it. And so if you want like national security, it could be completely selfish.
Yeah.
You're Prime Minister. If all the fridges turned off for 2 weeks, there'd be a revolution. That's all it would take. You're out, mate, and probably dead.
Yeah.
So that's a bit harsh. But you probably would be.
Yeah.
2 weeks without food and things get scary.
Yeah.
So that should be the priority one, is to get food.
Yeah.
And the solutions are there.
Yeah.
I think we're about 50% self-sufficient in this country. And I don't know if we ever could be self-sufficient.
But that's where almost the opportunities are pretty much endless, because you obviously have the rows at our farm because you can't just say, right, it's all carrots and then carrots stop. Well, what are we going to do? But then, like you say, if you've got the dairy side of it, or you can add on pigs, or you can add on that, and then and it's just all these bits and pieces of that step by step, what's going to work, of what time, like here's your calendar year, of what's going to work then. What do we need? When do we need income? Okay, well, we'll put this in. Okay, well, what are we going to do with those chickens' eggs? Then what do we do with the chickens? Oh, well, actually, we'll team up with this butcher. Well, that butcher doesn't want to know. Okay, so do we add on an abattoir onto there, or do we? It's all that opportunity. So actually, the possibilities are endless.
Exactly.
Of how it works forward. But like you say, it's that chicken and egg. See what I did there? Of money versus investment of what's gonna.
It is, and that is an issue. But again, I take pride in the fact it's like, okay, so I didn't really start with any money.
Yeah.
We've got this far. I could have been this far after a few months. I'd had more money at the end of the day. But it's like it doesn't really matter.
No.
We're still going to get there.
Yeah.
You're just going to do it. It's just going to take longer. I mean, our local MP was up at the farm this summer, and he was talking about rural jobs quite a bit, and that we definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
And afterwards, his assistant secretary, whoever she was, sent an email with links to possible grants. And they're all meaningless grants. It's like 1,500 quid here. And for some businesses, that might be a lot, but for a farm, it's like, what's the point? That's not infrastructure spending. Only about 50 grand just to put the water infrastructure in.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I can get a grant for 1,500 quid worth of light bulbs.
Yeah.
So, my response to that email was, I think actually the best way, and maybe the only way you can support this, is to buy the produce.
Yeah.
because that's it.
Yeah.
So if you think that local food is a good thing, and you think that organic, maybe you don't think organic is, but maybe you think environmentally conscious food, perhaps you see that there's some change that needs to happen. I don't know if this is the right change, but I'm open to change as we go and make sure that it is right. And if you're proud of local and English, then buy it.
Yeah.
That's it. And then nothing can stop it.
No.
That's, I think, probably the definition of grassroots.
Yeah.
Um,
And actually then you get less wastage because everything grown is going out to someone. And is there how do you weigh up that cut-off point of like the veg box scheme and the market's obviously easily controllable, because if everyone buys into the veg box scheme, if you haven't got anything for the market, you don't go to market. What's the balance and how does that?
Yeah, the markets, 2021, year one at Ark Farm, the markets were the main income. I didn't have a barn at that point to do the box scheme. So markets were it. They got everything.
Yeah.
And there was actually a lot of wastage. I gave quite a lot to Still Good Food in Bury, which is a food charity, a bit like a food bank slightly.
Yeah.
And really good. I mean, it's nice to have it. It's sad, but at least it was going somewhere.
Yeah.
And then year two, still struggling with veg boxes, but it was going and the numbers were going up and it was good. Farmers markets were still a big part of it.
Yeah.
Certainly of the income. This year, there's been a shift. So this year, we're getting traction with the veg boxes, and that's now actually taken the lead and is now paying the bills.
Yeah.
And is enabling us to invest and push things forward, which is
Amazing.
the primary driver. But the best part about the veg boxes is there's almost no wastage.
Yeah.
Because anything, like last orders are on a Tuesday, everything's delivered on a Thursday. So I pick what I need.
Yeah.
And I buy in what I need.
Yeah.
There's no extras. And because I know exactly how many customers there are.
Yeah.
So it's great. A little bit gets thrown away, but that's just normal. Usually quality things. Yeah, if it's not good enough, then it gets put. But it goes on the compost heap. So does it get thrown away? Don't know.
Yeah.
It'll get back on the field. So now farmers markets tend to get the surplus. So whatever, let's say I go through and I'm picking chard. I pick what I need, I pack it, and there'll still be some in the field.
Yeah.
So the weekend I can go back, pick what's there, and sell that at farmers markets. Same applies. I've recently been involved with a few local restaurants. Again, I give them the surplus or things that I've got a lot of stock of.
Yeah.
So there's storage stuff, shallots, squash, things like that. I can offer those out quite freely because they're stored for winter.
Yeah.
I've just reined that in actually, just to focus on the veg boxes. Things aren't growing anymore, so what we've got is what we've got until the new year.
But the thing is, I think that's when it's going back to because obviously what we get in the box is what's in season, so what's available. And I like your post that it's like, it's not the rainbow veg at this time of year, it's the same things. But also like the post you did on salsify recipes. Because I think I messaged you once when it first appeared. I was like, oh, what's the sticks? Greg's, what is these sticks? What do we do with them?
Dug them up out of the ditch.
Yeah. But it's then, so this time of year has traditionally been soups. Well, actually, you can pretty much put anything in a soup. We were talking about it on at boot camp the other week for exactly the same reason of just making soups this time of year. A bit like salads in the summer. You can put anything in a salad, you can put anything in the soup. But it's educating people into something, that way of life. Now, I've learnt more recently, if you put the word innovation in front of it and it's brand new, you can get more money for it. Which, can we do that with what you do? But it's not innovation. It's actually doing it's relearning and re-educating what we used to do. I mean, to the right people, depending who you're going to, you could call it innovation because they might not have heard of it before.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's just re-educating people, and it's that I guess circle of life, or the way the world goes round of just, well, actually, yes, we've got loads of chard and shallots at this time of year, so this is what you make. And that's when I'm guessing the restaurants help, because you're selling to chefs that can do a seasonal menu, specials
Yeah, they
menu,
really enjoy it.
and just use they get a bit more creative. It's not just like, oh, doing the tomato pasta again.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, but it takes a special chef. A lot of restaurants, they kind of have a menu, you know, and they want the same things all the time and consistency. Whereas good chefs, they know the difference. They change their menu because there's a passion behind it, and they like the story.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode. We really hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please share with a friend who you think needs a bit of help with starting a business or even their small business, which they've already got going. Please like and subscribe to our podcast, which always helps a small business or small podcast like us. And check the show notes. We all have everything in there relating to the episode, which you might need, might want to read, and links to anyone we've interviewed and certain subjects we've spoken about. And thanks for listening.